Morning, everyone. Lots going on as usual, and the first thing I want to talk about is in Canada, but there's other stuff that happened outside of Canada that's kind of in the same vein. So I'll start there and then come to Canada. First, Dr. Matt Strauss is saying when these measures are properly evaluated in courts of law, they're generally found to be unsubstantiated. I'm glad for this, but a pity it takes so long. And he's referring to the Scottish Court of Session finds closure of churches violated right to freedom of religion, measures not shown to be proportionate response. Interesting part of the ruling, quote, online platforms provided an alternative to, but did not constitute worship. Interesting, they're drawing a distinction there. And here, let's come home to our own imprisoned pastor for daring to not turn away his worshipers. He was in prison for a long time, and this is when he hugged his kids and wife for the first time. And I'm glad he's released. He was released yesterday, I suppose, 20 hours ago, and that's good news. And it's wild that we're in a situation where the Premier of Alberta kept a pastor in prison for preaching. How far we've fallen, right? Would Ralph Klein have done that? How long would he have gotten away with that? I don't know. I don't think so. There may have been actual pitchforks in the response to that. Here is an interesting thing, which is Randy Hillier is being... Global Kingston is reporting, quote, "This is not the way in which the township of South Frontenac wishes to have this riding represented," the motion said. It was passed unanimously by council this week. So South Frontenac Council votes to denounce Randy Hillier over COVID-19 stance. I think that is misguided. Very interesting to see these councillors voting this way. Congratulations, Randy. When they do this, it means you're doing something right. It's like when Twitter shuts down your account. It's like, oh, I've said a little bit too much truth. This is not. I don't know that this is the role of the council. But if they were saying good job, Randy Hillier, I would say good job to the council. But as they're trying to denounce him, I suppose it's their right to express their voice in a letter and in a democratic way, having a little vote like that. However, I don't know that that's true of the voters, right? Like the last time people went to the polls, Hillier was voted in. And yes, he's been expelled from the caucus, but that doesn't automatically trigger a by-election. So he's the elected representative, whether you like it or not, I suppose. And if you don't like it, that sucks for you. And welcome to the party, right? I don't like my representative. I think that the Liberals are doing a very poor job, right? So does that mean that the city council should all vote together that we don't like it? It's not so good. Okay. Yesterday, some things got published. So this got published. This was from a viral immunologist, and he's an immunologist, an associate professor from the University of Guelph, and he wrote a public letter to the Guelph Press. He got picked up by the Toronto Sun, which is great, and it brought to light the fact that the public health lied. They in a letter to me, they lied. They said that they don't send letters to people who are healthy students in classes of. They don't send letters to high contact or high risk contacts, people who are in the same classroom, right? But I got a letter from a friend of mine the other day, and I know I talked about this yesterday, but this will play into the future of stuff or the next stories. So my friend got a letter, and then this was published, and it became apparent that they lied about it. So I'm following up, and so I published. If you're interested in following up with that, here's the March 23rd, that's today, letter regarding continued isolation expectations. And I'm not going to go through this, but it puts together the fact that they lied. And when somebody lies, that means their credibility is shot. Like that's not a good thing for the public health to lie. And I'm honestly trying to understand, in good faith, trying to understand what happened. Because the only way I can read this is that they willfully misinformed me. They lied. And I don't think that's appropriate. If you get asked a question you don't like, and if you're in a situation where you're a public health officer, you have a responsibility to tell the truth, right? Right? I think that's important. And I think the fact that there was one lie indicates that there is more lies. If they'll lie about this, what else will they lie about? So here's my public letter to them, following up with, hey, on March 3rd, I asked you about this. You said specifically that you didn't do this. And here we are. I've got proof and other people calling you out for exactly the same thing. What happened here? You have no credibility. No credibility. How can public health shut down businesses when they're lying about simple things like this? It bears questioning, right? Doesn't it? Maybe my expectations are too high. If you hire somebody, say you owned let's do a little thought experiment. If you owned a fast food restaurant, okay, and you hired a 15-year-old idiot because you think this 15-year-old idiot has got potential, right? I'm going to teach him how to do this. And then the 15-year-old idiot shorts the till and lies about it. Do you give the 15-year-old idiot another shot? Maybe. Say he works his way up and then lies about it when he's a manager. You give him another shot? I don't know. It depends. But so far, these people have been opaque, ignoring the public, refusing to answer basic questions, refusing to give us an idea of what metrics they're using exactly. They wanted to go to red. They wanted to keep us in red for the variants of concern. And somebody actually said, well, you said that the most important metrics were the case numbers and the, what were the two most important? Confirmed case numbers per 100,000 and 7-day moving average. And they're like, well, they're both in orange. So variants of concern? Why? We have, nobody in the hospital and everything's in orange. So somebody pushed back. I don't know who pushed back or why or how, but am I ever glad I asked for some clarification, which she kind of provided, but not really. There was no document saying this is how we come to this decision. Just these are the two most important metrics. That's all she said at the beginning of the meeting, right? I don't know that answered my question. I don't know how many times omission of information counts as a lie, but this certainly counts as a lie. And unless I'm completely misunderstanding something, but I don't think I am. If I am, I'll own it. That's fine. But if not, why are we accepting public officials on the public dime, paid very, very handsomely for their opinions, and in a position to shut down businesses? Why are we accepting them lying to us? It seems wrong. It seems like there should be a trigger for accountability. It seems like an appropriate question to ask why there isn't. And what's the bar here, right? How much can you lie? Can you lie to get rid of an annoying citizen? How about an annoying university professor? Where does it end? How about an annoying mayor, right? Where does it end? What do we tolerate here, right? And my tolerance is very low. To me, fire everyone. Get them gone. That Board of Health, see you later. Either you knew about the lie, or now you know about the lie and you should be asking questions about what else has been hidden or massaged or, the data just smoothed over, right? Has she lied to the Board of Health? Has she lied to the other people, right? She lied to the citizenry, and those are the people who pay their taxes or pay them the wage. So why wouldn't she lie to the board, right? It begs other questions. Okay. Winston Smith says, why are COVID deaths from with a running total now over 2 seasons? We don't do this with the flu or any other virus that is tracked. All COVID data is either manipulated or presented in such a way to make things seem as bad as possible. I agree with this. I pointed this out in January. I said, we're in a brand new year. And maybe the flu season is separate, but usually it's the 2020-2021 flu season, not the from the end of the 2019 flu season, right? The 2019 flu season ended in the summer. 2019-2020 flu season ended in the summer, but we're still counting those initial cases as cases today, right? That's part of the whole number, right? And I think that is a soft manipulation because it's not how we've done it in the past, and people don't really question it because it's that's the number of when it rolled in January, they kept the number at 15 deaths. And it makes sense because 2020-2021 flu season is one flu season, but the 2020-2021 flu season typically starts in November. So if they were honest, they would have had, I don't know how many deaths we had in November, December. It started to pick up in January. I can't remember how many deaths exactly, but we would have reset the counter for the new flu season in September or October. But we didn't do that. We just kept them going, right? That's why it's a soft manipulation. They didn't mention it. They just kept counting the counter going up. Okay. Family doctors in Ontario say they want to be more involved in the province's COVID-19 vaccination effort. I think it's interesting that they're building. That was out of. Okay, that was out of order. Apologies. I think it's back in place now. But first, I want to talk about the research, the 4-month extension. The research doesn't back the vaccine dose delay for seniors. Canada's chief science advisor says. So we've got a situation where we've got a running total, and it seems like we've got people just making up the rules as they go along. Like, oh, thanks for the vaccines. We'd love lots of doses. We'll buy everything that you've got, right? Load me up, right? Fill the card up. We'll take it all. And then when we get it, we'll completely ignore the instructions and just administer it willy-nilly outside of the instructions so that a whole bunch of people get first doses and not second doses. And again, I think the whole vaccine thing is a distraction. We've got lots of examples of places that have opened up without the vaccine. This is being artificially inflated to create demand, I think. Here is Dr. Kaur, and she was talking with Michelle Rempel, and Michelle Rempel blocked her. And I think that stuff like this goes a long way to waking people up about what our Conservative Party is actually doing in Ottawa. Okay, when Michelle Rempel is not interested in talking with Dr. Kaur about the things Dr. Kaur was trying to point out to her, that indicates a problem. That indicates an unwillingness to listen. Right? So it's not Dr. Kaur, excuse me, it's Dr. Gill. She says, there you have it, folks. Canada's Shadow Minister of Health from Conservative Party of Canada's self-proclaimed Party of Freedoms, Rights, Liberties. For months, Michelle Rempel has disabled all commenting on her tweets and blocks anyone who questions her unscientific, unconstitutional, and harmful rhetoric. Michelle's been advocating for a vaccine passport to get back to normal. Aaron O'Toole's demanding that too. He's asking for a plan to get back to normal. And I say, be wary of your champions because they'll reverse things on you, right? Aaron O'Toole's plan to get things back to normal is no plan at all. He wants vaccines and vaccine passports and all sorts of crazy stuff. And he won't come out and, well, it's just like Scheer. He wouldn't come out against globalism. He wouldn't come out against certain isms and things that were being demanded at the time. In exactly that same way, Aaron O'Toole ignores people demanding a renunciation of lockdowns or vaccine passports, etc. So it's exactly the same. They're not going to do any better. In fact, they'll probably do worse. And Jagmeet Singh, I think, is going to do worse too. In an election, I think it's going to be a disaster. It's going to be a complete and utter disaster. Anyway, okay. Here is if you're thinking about taking the jab. Here are 3 former presidents. The thing that struck me, I'll tell you after what I thought was interesting about who was missing. Okay, this is an American ad, but here we go.
Our fellow Americans.
Right now, the COVID-19 vaccines are available to millions of Americans.
And soon, they will be available to everyone.
The science is clear. These vaccines will protect you and those you love from this dangerous and deadly disease.
They could save your life.
So we urge you to get vaccinated when it's available to you.
That's the first step to ending the pandemic and moving our country forward. It's up to you.
Oh, like that's the guitar chord at the end, like G. There's a lot to unpack on that ad. It's up to you. It's up to you with a Band-Aid. Oh, we're fixing things. There's George Bush and Bill Clinton and Barack Obama. I mean, that's a lot of American foreign policy there. How many drone strikes between those 3? Right? Come on, man. The thing that stuck out to me, where the heck was Joe Biden? You get 3 former presidents like that. This is like a media push. I know Joe Biden is completely incapable, and his little shuffle, like the little old man shuffle he does. Like if I saw somebody walking down the hall at me, towards me, the way Joe Biden walks generally, I would think this is a fragile person, a fragile man. Anyway, the fact that he's missing is telling because he doesn't have a strong presence, right? There's not that strength exuded when he's on the screen. But usually in a typical way, you would defeat that by having him sit on a car or something, sit on something, be doing something with his hands or something like that. I mean, Joe would get confused, right? Like, he wouldn't be able to do that. But the thing is, they didn't take the opportunity to highlight the new president. They went back to Obama, who after the Trump years, not so popular anymore. There's a lot of people who don't like Obama so much, right? That drone war was waged pretty endlessly. Here's your Nobel Peace Prize, sir. And then there was George H.W. Bush. Didn't people hold protests in Toronto about war crimes? Yeah, like didn't he commit war crime? Abu Ghraib, something like that. Doesn't that ring a bell? And Clinton, I mean, what do you say about Bill Clinton? What do you say about Bill Clinton? So it's very interesting how the past gets sanitized, and now they're the old timey folks who are hearkening back to better times and get the jab and we'll get back to normal. And this person says, this just solidifies that I will not be taking the jab. Where's Trump? How come Trump's not there? Project Warp Speed, right? Can you imagine those three and then Trump in the ad? He'd just troll them the whole time. It would never happen. They wouldn't be in the same room. They'd be like, no, we couldn't possibly risk our brand and being in the same frame as Trump. They'd get all upset about it. Okay, here is Doug Ford announcing 71% of Ontarians age 80 and up have signed up for the COVID-19 jab. So that means 29% have not. And here is the factory-like thing, vaccination center that Doug Ford is putting together and presiding over, and it's interesting that it's interesting how it's not very connected to like your health. If you were getting a flu shot, you'd go to your doctor and they'd say, okay, well, this is the clinic, or we've got the shot here and we can give it to you, and then put it in your chart and blah, blah, blah. But this is like a mass vaccination center with people who are, like it's like a factory. And I've seen videos of people going through them and stuff, and they're supposed to be really nice and all that stuff. I don't like the COVID game. I don't want to play the COVID game. I want to play the Florida game. If you're sick, fine. Stay home and protect yourself. Let's protect our at-risk population, and let's open everything up and get back to normal ASAP. Right? No masks, none of that stuff. I think that it is very, very, very damaging for children to have adults masked around them all day. I think it's damaging for just generally people to have other masked people around them all day. I think it hurts socially more than people realize, and I think that it's the job of our politicians to be advocating to get back to normal, not to sell us on how great a job they're doing at rolling out this vaccine or this next NPI or anything to that effect. Family doctors in Ontario are saying the same thing that I just said. They want to be more involved in the province's COVID-19 vaccination effort. I think that that's interesting. They want to have a situation where they can give their patients the jab if they want it and answer questions and stuff, right? In a situation like this, it feels like you're rushed through. Right? It feels like, okay, go here, go here, go here. Here's your cookie. Here's your recovery place. And then see you later, right? Like, bam, we've kept people safe. I don't know. It lacks humanity. And doing it this way is a very human way. And can't have that. Can't have that. The headline in this tells a different story than the actual story goes into. Thousands of Toronto hospital staff still haven't got their COVID-19 shots, memo reveals. Email encourages vaccinations among workers at University Health Network. Thousands of staff at a Toronto hospital network have still not been vaccinated against COVID-19, prompting an internal email from its president, which has been obtained by CBC News, urging them to get immunized. Roughly 4,000 employees of University Health Network, UHN, has not registered for their shots by Monday, according to the email sent that day by UHN President and CEO Dr. Kevin Smith. While our overall rate of uptake is very good, there are areas and programs where vaccination remains below 50% of people, Smith wrote. We must change this immediately. Can you do that? Can you say that? Can you demand that your employees get vaccinated? I don't think so. I don't think that that's legal. Smith also said that he's worried the hospital network's supply of vaccines will be greatly reduced in the days ahead as Ontario expands its list of priorities. The plea was made to staff as some of the highest risk encounters The plea was made to staff at some of the highest risk for encountering the SARS-CoV-2 virus in the workplace, according to UHN spokesperson Julian Howard, including those working in the emergency department, intensive care units, inpatient units, and COVID-19 units. Since the email was sent out, Howard said around 1,000 more UHN workers had registered for their vaccination, bringing the total to just over 18,000 people who will be vaccinated. The network has set up a phone line and vaccine ambassadors to answer questions from staff. How much does that cost, and where does that money come from? It was not immediately clear why some employees were slow to register. UHN includes multiple hospitals, including Toronto General Hospital, Toronto Western Hospital, and Princess Margaret Cancer Hospital. It's not clear how many staff at the other care healthcare networks and hospitals in the Toronto area have been vaccinated or signed up for the shots. Women's College Hospital, a separate facility from UHN, told CBC News around 664 of some 929 eligible staff members, about 71%, have been vaccinated so far. Is this information okay to just share? I would love to, like, if I called in and said, what percentage of your staff are now vaccinated, and what's the numbers? Would they just hand that out? Isn't that private information, right? Like, and it's interesting now that this has become part of the news report, right? The number of vaccinated staff. They're using it to push vaccination. That's why I said it's not exactly what you think when you read this headline, right? And it's done for clicks. It's done for clicks because they want to now, they'll use the rest of this to say, they talk about vaccine hesitancy and how to make sure people get the jab. And they're arguing for people to get the jab, so they're assuming you're on their side, right? Like they're writing it from the perspective of you agree with me and we should get people to have the jab. It's a very insidious trick. Very, very tricky. Here's CTV National News. This is great. This is my favorite. Canada on Tuesday said the AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccine is safe and will continue to be recommended for use despite criticism from U.S. health officials of the drug maker's analysis of the shot's efficacy, health officials said. And this person says, in other news, McDonald's says the Big Mac is perfectly safe for your arteries. Coca-Cola says the sugar content will not have any adverse effects on you long term. And the tobacco industry says smoking is not bad for your lungs and does not cause cancer. And it can't kill you. No worries, everyone. Get those, what were those trans fats back in French fries? Holy smoke. They were much better when they had trans fats. Here's Ottawa Citizen. Now, the 4-month thing, right? The taking the vaccinations for COVID, changing the manufacturer's dosing schedule, telling the Canadians that this is safe and effective and tested, I think is, what were we talking about at the beginning? When you misrepresent the truth, right? Like you tell somebody something that is not true and tell them that is the truth. That's a lie, right? I don't know how the Ottawa Citizen can say this. Had COVID, if you're younger, 1 dose of the vaccine might be enough. Have they tested any of this? It's like the pregnancy thing. And I've gotten a lot, thank you for sending things to my way. I've gotten CDC reports regarding pregnancy losses with regards to the jab, like people getting the jab and then losing the pregnancy. I've had reports of doctors leaving influential positions because of the position taken on vaccinating pregnant women because of the risks to the baby. They have left the position. And it was supposed to be in the show 2 days ago, but I copied the wrong link, and the original link I think was scrubbed. It was an international body appointment, and he left because he was like, no, we can't be doing this to pregnant people. So I think that it's really interesting, and I haven't read this. I don't know what the rationalization is. I didn't read it. I just want to point out that even having a tweet like this is very scary because it can misinform you. You shouldn't do anything with regards to health unless you talk to your doctor and then a couple other doctors too to make sure that that's a good idea if you have any concerns about it, right? If you think to yourself, I don't agree with that based on what I've read, go find somebody else. But don't listen to me for your health. Oh my goodness, don't listen to me. But honestly, having the newspaper print something like this, saying if you're younger, 1 dose of COVID vaccine might be enough. Are they talking AstraZeneca, Pfizer, Moderna? Are they talking, like, what are they talking about, right? And if you're younger, what qualifies younger, right? They're not supposed to be testing this on people who are younger than 16. They just started children trials. What insane parent would allow their children to be tested on like this? The state, right? If they're kids in foster care or something to that effect, it'll be couched in the same, we're keeping them safe language, right? Like, oh, they get the first whatever of this, right? Oh, it's a benefit. Yeah, sure, benefit. But it's scary. It's scary to witness this stuff because it's not true, right? Like this is, and if they can backhandedly justify writing this, it is dangerous and damaging because it's a half truth and not nearly enough information at all, period. It's just scary. Okay, moving into schools. My daughter's school, had she been enrolled this year, has been shut down. 1 positive case, 2 classes quarantined. Get this, no other teachers deemed close contact and no need to get tested without symptoms, but the whole school has been closed due to staff shortage. Curious why they send home test kits to asymptomatic kids if there's no requirement to test without symptoms. So in this one, this is a different school board than mine. This is the school board here, Catholic District School Board of Eastern Ontario. They don't have... You don't have to test your kids to bring them back to school, but they send test kits back. So it says the health unit is encouraging all staff and students to continue with public health recommendations to reduce COVID-19 spread and monitor for symptoms. Testing isn't necessary unless symptoms develop. If they do, the person with the symptoms and all in the household must immediately self-isolate and get tested at a local assessment center. Curious here. Why is an entire school shut down to staff shortages when only 2 teachers were deemed close contacts? So it's interesting, and this goes back to the push schools online. I hope that we're back to a normal school delivery in September. I hope we're back to school. People are talking about schools being not returning after April, and people are upset about that. There's a lot of very damaging things happening at schools. I'll let Mr. Baber take this, and I'm sorry if these are quiet. I try and turn this up as much as possible. Everything's as loud as it can be, but making me more quiet doesn't seem to make much sense. So I hope it's loud enough. But there's a lot of damaging things that are going on at schools. Here's a tweet from yesterday. Roman Baber says, I asked the Minister of Education about plexiglass around desks, silence at lunch, a 20 by 50 square foot box at recess, and a 2 meter distancing stick used in Ford Nations District. That's in the Peel District School Board. I think it's Peel anyway. What's done to our kids at school is evil. See S. Fleecy's response and 2-part remasks outdoors, and the masking outdoors thing. I think maybe I'll show that more. I'll show both questions. Lisi doesn't answer the questions, and I've been disappointed with him. But he says, Mr. Baber goes on, the government admits that the risk of transmission outdoors is minimal. Kids are at almost no risk of COVID. They spread the virus less than adults. So why does Mr. Fleecy insist on school children wearing masks outdoors, and will he repeal this requirement? Shame on Doug. Now, to qualify this, I just want to qualify this very quickly. This is the immunologist from the University of Guelph yesterday, and in the interview, he says this, Dr. Bridle wants Ontario parents to know that the science does not support these excessive policies. Quote, as a scientist, I follow the facts, says Bridle. The evidence is overwhelming. There is no question now that COVID-19 is no worse than the annual flu for our elementary school children. Okay, so within that context, this is scary and heartbreaking, because there are people. This is my argument to the the Waterloo District, the Waterloo Dufferin Public Health, is because people are trying to follow the rules and make the kids follow the rules. They don't have the agency. They don't have the ability to choose for themselves when to take the mask off, and that in itself constitutes a removal of their rights and abuse, and it's horrible. And people should understand what's happening, because I don't think enough people do. Okay, I'll play this one, then I'll probably play this one. Here we go.
Mr. Speaker, I think the minister rehearsed an answer to a different member opposite. I'm saying that kids are not safe from this government in school, and we have not heard an answer from the minister. Over the weekend, the Minister of Education was busy taking selfies while, quote, catching up with seniors, all while families of loved ones are denied visitation rights by his government. Shame on this government. But in last Friday's news release, the government said that it will work with health officials to determine measures for, quote, outdoor activities where the risk of transmission is minimized, close quote. Speaker, study after study is telling us that, with few statistical exceptions, that kids are almost at no material risk of COVID. And even though the minister tries to take credit for everything under the sun, credible studies are telling us that children spread the virus far less than adults. I invite the members to read yesterday's article in the HuffPost on this topic. So my question to the Minister of Education, if the risk of transmission is minimized during outdoor activities, then why does he force school children to wear masks outdoors? And will he commit now to repeal this requirement?
Minister of Education.
Mr. Speaker, we have
he goes through talking about how they've tried to make schools safe and kept them open, and that's the most important thing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and tying the masks to keeping the schools open. And he's purposely misunderstanding and misrepresenting the point made by Mr. Baber, and it's frustrating to watch. So I'm not going to play it. And Balaclava says he's tagging all of the EFTO educators and all of this stuff. The forced masking of kids for up to 7 hours a day with no justification or scientific evidence of effectiveness is near the top of the many egregious abuses that have occurred since the start of the COVID-19 debacle. Yes. We would not consider masking our children for a flu. I wouldn't think twice about sending my kids to school during flu season. I've done it for years. I don't think I worked in schools. We've had flus. We've had hand, foot, and mouth. We've had fifth disease. We've had I don't think there was scarlet fever, but we've had some crazy diseases through the time that I worked in group homes and other things. And we had isolation of houses. Like there was cottages that were on site, and we had an illness that if we got a flu or something like that, it was hand, foot, and mouth that we isolated one of the houses until that died down. But that was years and years and years ago. And it wasn't like the houses were isolated and they couldn't leave the property or anything like that. Their parents came, if parents were in the picture, and visited their kids or took them home where appropriate, etc. And the thing is, I have never, even experiencing that higher level of reaction because we were at a ministry regulated home, and it wasn't even ministry regulations that made us do that. It was a response from our nurse and our and management team. But regardless, like whatever, it doesn't really matter. Even with that, I never once worried about like other kids or what if they got sick. Kids get sick and they get better, right? Like these things are crazy. And if there's a lot of evidence that says it's no worse than a flu, why are we destroying everything? Why are we standing by and letting them destroy everything? It seems crazy. It seems wild. Here's Catherine Fife. They're trying to lock the schools down after Easter. They're trying to force it to online only after Easter. A lot of parents are worried about this. People are sending me messages about this already, which is I'm glad to have the messages. It keeps me aware of what's going on. And I was skeptical when they said this around Christmas. I said they'll never let it happen. The minister will basically force them back to work. And I was wrong. They did the 2 extra weeks, and we had to fight like HE double hockey sticks to get the kids back in school. And they're going to do exactly the same thing in this Easter break, to the point of people are calling on having Easter in June. They're saying just have the April break, the March break in June. Take it on to the end because the teachers won't come back. And don't give them the opportunity. And apparently the unions have told the teachers to pack it up. So if you want those teachers staying in school, man, get noisy, because otherwise it looks like there is potential job action one way or the other, and potential return to kids out of classroom. And this is not called for by any experts. This is not necessary, and this is wholly political. They're using our kids as pawns. Shame on them. Shame on those unions. Anyway, Lisa says, so all the prison-like restrictions on our kids don't work. They're trying to. This is Catherine Fife, and she's saying that Monday, March 22nd, 44 schools closed. 1 in 5 schools have an outbreak. 140 new cases. They're trying to make the case that the schools aren't safe to get public support for keeping kids home. But what they're saying is these masking restrictions, these distancing restrictions, don't mean anything. They don't work. Right. Hilarious. Here is, if you're not sure how the unions and the politicians work together, here's a little handy chart, right? And NDP, this is Alberta, but it applies in Ontario too, right? Create public sector jobs in the school boards or wherever, more teachers. Unions receive more dues. The unions donate to the political party that continues the cycle. You see, this is what's going on. This is why schools are possibly at risk, right? And if they don't get what they want, and what they want is smaller class sizes for your safety, comrade, then they'll strike, right? And they'll break it until we can get back under the process of ballooning the bureaucracy. There's lots of money there. Print it off, right? Lots and lots of money. Whew. COVID-19 is for your safety. Print. Okay, what happened? So on January 12th, Dr. Fisman, Says, we have a tsunami of deaths coming. I am sorry this case-demic rhetoric directly contributed to this tragedy, and I hope that there are consequences for those who knowingly pushed disinformation. Oh, wow. We agree about something there, Dr. Fissman. But here we are in March, and since December, you can see that all of the numbers have steadily declined. So Mr. Fissman was wrong. So accountability, please. Accountability. Oh, here's fun. Here's a fun chart. Do you guys remember this chart? This is February 16. This is like one of those flashback episodes, right? Like these are the days of your life, right? And it's like that Christmas story where he gets removed and he sees how terrible their lives were. Anyway, regardless, here is what they said on February 16th. If we stay with the current public health measures, they will be insufficient and epidemic resurgence is forecast. So like these, I can't put my mouse on it. I'm trying to point at it, but it's not going to work because you can't see. But if you look at the gray line and the yellow line, that they go up exponentially. And then the blue line represents enhanced combined public health measures and individual precautions. Then we'll maybe see the blue line, the reduction. So we've got exponential growth if we open, and exponential growth if we kept the same public health measures as February 16th. Well, we don't have the same measures as February 16th. And you know what happened? None of their predictions happened. This is what actually happened. Huh. Isn't that weird? Isn't that strange that they were completely and utterly wrong? Isn't that like not surprising at all? Completely wrong. Accountability, please. No? Accountability, please. No. It's not going to ever happen. It's not going to ever happen. Oh, because public health can just lie with impunity. So the other day I was telling you about the PCR testing change. Kelly Brown goes in depth about what that means and talking about the Brazil and South African mutation. He says Ontario variant testing material change to surveillance protocol by Public Health Ontario. Starting today, now PCR positives for Brazil and South African mutations, in addition to UK mutation, no longer gene sequencing and 501Y mutation to confirm. And he goes through looking at what the Brazil and UK mutations look like, or South Africa and UK, and here's Brazil, and looks at the media talking about all of this messaging, right? And the scare tactics. Here's some recent media. He says, here's the warning. This is one crisis. This is March 21st. Is this a doctor? Dr. Eric Ding. He says, this is one crisis we all need to pay attention to, and that's the unprecedented Brazil surge of the P1 variant, overloaded hospitals, and sharp mortality spike. Oh no. Color me skeptical, right? Here's recent media. This is the younger, sicker, or is this the new one? Younger, sicker here? No. Maybe not younger, sicker. That was the last variant. So Kelly does a good job at putting this together. If you're interested in looking at that, I think that more people looking at this stuff is better, right? Looking at this stuff and drawing conclusions and then discussing that among friends and family. Like, what's going on is I don't know exactly what's going on, but there seems to be a lot of discrepancies between what we're told and what's actually happening. Here's Roman Baber. Again, a third lockdown would be terrible. Half of Ontario is in lockdown. The other half is close to lockdown. They are terrible and they don't work. Seniors are still dying in long-term care. Ford Nation finally admits lockdowns are terrible. Again, this is one of those where this goes on to justify, like at the beginning, it talks about how we don't want to do that again, but it goes on to justify the need for public health measures and continued steadfastedness to prevent a third wave lockdown. It sounds like the rhetoric of a lockdown is coming. It says Ford said those discussions will take place Wednesday during a meeting with his cabinet, but stressed the importance of continuing to follow public health guidelines. Quote, I can't stress this enough. Please, we have to be cautious, Ford said, adding that the province's third wave of COVID-19 concerns him 24/7. Oh, sure. Ford said, while it's great for people to get out and get fresh air, Ontarians need to remain vigilant and follow the protocol set out by Chief Medical Officer of Health, Dr. David Williams. Folks, it's absolutely critical that we do this because none of us want to go back to another lockdown. It'd be absolutely terrible. So, can you explain this? Who's advising you? And have you shown them this graph and said, explain how you got it so terribly wrong that I stay up 24/7 thinking about how terrible this could be? Like, again, it is incredulous that somebody who's that worried about what he's saying would be ignorant of the data that I can see. And maybe he's got access to data that I don't. But from everything that I can see, the only reason that this is an awful, terrible... If you take the restrictions away and the masking away, if you could say everybody could open up and do whatever, the hospitals... It would be Florida. It would be Florida. We have examples of this, right? It would be Texas. It would be South Dakota and North Dakota. It would be Georgia. It would be Sweden. And we have proof of this. And they're ignoring this. He's saying, he's selling fear. Folks, it's absolutely critical that we do this because none of us want to go down another lockdown. Fear, 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 fear. I'm not buying it, man. Sorry. Sorry. I'm all out of it. All out of F's to give. Okay. Dan Kelly says, how long can this go on? Toronto gym owners plead for return to outdoor workouts in Ontario. Open your gyms. Open your gym. Outdoor. Can we please open outdoor workouts? Please, please. Can we have some table scraps, please? We'll work out outside in the rain. Open your gyms. Stop being ridiculous. Like this guy has some explaining to do. A whole lot of explaining to do. And he should come and beg for your forgiveness and your vote, not give you outdoor gyms. Holy smoke. Can we please have outdoor gyms? How weak can you get? Ontario Solicitor General Sylvia Jones, MPP, says it's not the role of the federal government to advocate for or against lockdowns. She says Ontario's framework has been working well. It's been working well? For who? Oh yeah, no, we'll just keep doing this. This is great, right? Everybody likes this? Everybody likes this. An app to prevent ODs? Sure, why not? How about an app to prevent poverty? Jason Kenny says, to protect the lives of Albertans struggling with addictions, Alberta is launching a new mobile app to prevent overdose deaths. Alberta's digital overdose response system will pilot in Calgary this summer before expanding to other areas of the province. Have you downloaded this app? We'll give you free drugs if you download this app. Sure. This is funny. This made me laugh. I'll show you the beginning and the end because we don't get an answer from Bardish Chagger, but what Polyev says is pretty funny, and so we'll listen to both. Here we go.
Carlton.
When it came to light that the Prime Minister approved a $500 million grant to a group that had paid his family $500,000, he said, listen, this thing was just dropped on the cabinet table and I knew nothing about it. Is it really believable that this Prime Minister would know nothing about a $500 million cabinet submission? Well, actually, yes, it is. But until you see this email that was sent to his top advisor.
Is he trying to be a stand-up? That's pretty funny. I mean, it's good. It's good. Okay, let's carry on.
Advisor from Craig Kielburger. Hi, Ben. Thank you for your kindness in helping to shape our latest program with the government. What role did the Prime Minister's top advisor play in setting up this $500 million handout to the Prime Minister's friends?
The Honorable...
And they pivot. I'll cue up Polyev's next bit. Okay, here's the rest of it, and he's just kind of laughing about it. Here we go.
Well, she says the program didn't unfold as intended. Well, that's because they got caught when they were intending to hand money over to their friends. But there they go again, blaming the nonpartisan public service for the program, except for this little email from Craig Kielburger, who says, hello, Ben, senior advisor to the Prime Minister. Thank you for your kindness in helping to shape our latest program with the government. If these ministers can't give us a straight answer about what role the PMO played in shaping the program, will they let this senior advisor come testify at a parliamentary committee under oath to explain his story?
Oh, I can answer that question for you, Mr. Polyev. No is the answer. Sorry. Sorry. Just in case you were waiting and you weren't sure. The answer is no. The answer is they're not going to do that. No. Okay, this was an abject failure. A health agency ordered for second time by MPs to disclose records on mismanagement of stockpiles. Government of Canada, Health Canada, ignored the November 2nd order to detail the numbers of pandemic supplies thrown out. Oh, we don't answer questions we don't like. Sorry about that, everyone. Sorry, we're liberals. We don't answer questions we don't like. Sorry, you didn't get that memo? We sent it at the top, like in the header. You didn't see that? Sorry about that. Similarly, if you own a taxpayer-funded bank, you don't have to disclose millions of dollars of exec bonuses. right? MPs OK NDP Taylor Branch motion ordering taxpayer-owned bank to disclose millions of dollars of exec bonuses. MPs have been after this for a year. So they've been asking for the bonuses for a year, and they've finally got the okay. I don't know if we actually have it. Maybe that's what it is here. But it's quite a high rate of, if that's what it is, looks like between 0 and 75% of your base salary. You can go up to almost 200% of your base salary. Why didn't I get into finance? I missed that boat. Maybe I'll just get more Bitcoin. Okay, I'm in charge. O'Toole brushes off conservative grassroots vote on climate change. Okay, having been a candidate in the 2019 election, the media is, well, just look at the picture they're using. They will use anything to paint somebody in a bad light if they want to paint them in a bad light. So O'Toole's missteps are exaggerated, and they always will be, right? Just be aware. Trudeau's are exaggerated, but in a distractionary way. But this is done to make him look foolish. Like look at the smile. Look at, like, they take, when they click, it's like click, and there's a bunch of pictures, and then the newspaper person takes it. Like there's transitional and all sorts of stuff. They use specific pictures for a reason. Okay, just to put that in there. Now that said, you can give them a lot to work with, and it seems like O'Toole is giving them more to work with than Scheer did. John Iveson says the majority of Canadians are feeling politically homeless, a poll finds. A confusion of ideas explains Aaron O'Toole's problems with his party's membership. He thought him saying the climate change debate is over made it so, and the grassroots thought it didn't. O'Toole told a reporter on Tuesday, quote, "I am the leader, I am in charge." But that is unlikely to persuade voters that this is a moderate mainstream party that can be trusted to stand up to the social conservative tail that wagged the dog at last weekend's convention. As Margaret Thatcher once said, being powerful is like being a lady. If you have to tell people you are, you aren't. The events of the weekend are likely to aggravate the sense of exasperation among centrist voters across Canada. Last week, I posted an idle thought on Twitter that there seemed to be a lot of people who feel politically homeless. The flood of responses suggested that that was indeed the case. So we asked pollster John Wright at Maru Public Opinion to test or to try to quantify the level of disenchantment. Maru polled 1,505 adults and found that nearly 6 in 10, 57% of Canadians feel politically homeless, compared to 4 in 10 who feel that they have a party they can call home. We're a nation of political cynics, or at least disillusioned idealists. While 1/3 said it will be easy for them to choose a party in the coming election, the poll suggested another third will grudgingly find accommodation in a political home, but they are open to persuasion in the meantime. A further 20% say they are truly homeless and will be forced to make a choice come election day, while 13% say they are so disappointed that they won't even make a choice. Wright asked respondents who said they felt homeless to name 2 things in each party that made them feel that way. For the Liberals, it was the leader and the economic tax policies. For the Conservatives, it was the leader and the party's social policies. For the NDP, it was the economic tax policies and the social policies, notably not the leader. For the Greens, it was the party's ideological stance and economic tax policies. It's a bit like baseball statistics, right? Hard to quantify on audio. And the rest goes into kind of looking at the poll and talking. It's not that it's not worth it, but it's more opinion on O'Toole, etc. And not very insightful. I don't know. It just kind of spins the right the zeitgeist, what you're supposed to think, right? Here's Aaron O'Toole demanding more, right? Action. Aaron O'Toole needs a reopening plan, or Canada needs a reopening plan. It's time the government outlines when we can return to normal and begin the recovery. That's what we're pushing for today. You know what I'd like? Just the government to get out of the way. Like, honestly, get out of the way. Tell us what you've done with our money and get out of the way. Stop stopping us from opening our businesses. Stop devaluing our money. Stop sending our money. Okay, I've got a longer list than get out of the way. Stop sending our money out. Stop sending our money out of the country. Stop spending tax money on failed green initiatives. Stop wasting tax dollars at the WHO and other international NGOs. Okay, Freeland says budget will be tabled by April 19th, or on April 19th. Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland announced Tuesday that the next federal budget will be tabled on April 19th. The budget will be Ms. Freeland's first as a finance minister and the Liberal government's first in more than 2 years. The last federal budget was March 19th, 2019. In her November fall economic statement, Ms. Freeland said the 2021 budget will unveil a plan to spend up to $100 billion over 3 years on measures to restart the economy. The update also promised that the budget would announce the Liberal government's next step towards a national child care program. Number one, when they talk about spending lots of money to restart the economy, they're talking about spending the money on racialized Canadians, on women, on Indigenous Canadians, but not at restoring their clean drinking water. It is a wild, crazy ride. I can't wait to see what this budget is going to be. That's my prediction. My prediction is going to be lots of special targeted spending to buy votes in specific areas, and the usual industries get shafted. And can they tax gas and oil more? If they can tax gas and oil more, they'll add that into the budget too, because they've got to pay for it somehow, right? They'll tax it. They'll add a 100% tax on it, and they'll tell you that's their environmental initiative for real. And now they're also getting into, they want to tax the internet. The budget is also expected to unveil the government's approach to raising new tax revenue from large digital corporations such as Facebook and Alphabet Inc., parent company of Google. Ottawa's plan for later than usual budget is fueling speculation that the Liberals are at least considering the possibility of a late spring election campaign and using the budget as a form of policy platform. The Liberals lead a minority government, meaning they need the support of at least one other party to survive votes on confidence matters, including a budget. However, NDP leader Jagmeet Singh announced last month that his party will not trigger an election while the country's focus remains on the COVID-19 pandemic. That means an election prompted by a parliamentary defeat is unlikely. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau can go to the Governor-General at any time and request an election. Supreme Court of Canada Chief Justice Richard Wagner is fulfilling the duties of the Governor-General on a temporary basis after Julie Payette resigned from the position in January. So lots of people think that there's an election coming. Sure, they're electioneering all the time. This is a hilarious t-shirt, right? Just because your t-shirt says climate change is real doesn't make it real. I think it's the funniest thing to have stuff like that. It's like hold on. The parallels between climate change and the COVID-19 pandemic crisis response, whatever you want to call it, are many. And I think that they're using the same playbook just on the COVID-19 as they use for climate change. It's the same faulty style data. I think it maps really well. I think the two things are almost interchangeable. And like flipping an omelet, I think they're going to try and flip the COVID lockdowns to climate lockdowns, and it'll be seamless. It'll be like, right? Like, you know what I'm talking about. Somebody told me yesterday I should stop laughing because it's so serious. I was like, okay, I'll sob more. I mean, what are you going to do, right? Like, it's so serious. It's so serious that we need to have a conversation that makes sense to people. It needs to be accessible to people. It's so serious that maybe one or two people will email their MP. Maybe one or two people will take action and talk to their family or talk to their wife or talk to their mother-in-law or father-in-law or somebody who's around them about something that they wouldn't have otherwise talked about. And maybe they'll bridge that gap with a joke or something silly or something stupid. And maybe that's okay, right? Maybe laughing about it is all we've got left, right? Like maybe it's that serious that, we really should laugh. We really, really should. But as we laugh, say this is absurd and we need to stop it. Because it's absurd. It's crazy. They've demonetized Rebel News. Apparently, there were a bunch of people who were like, "Oh, Rebel News is asking for money again. That's terrible." I think it's concerning when out of the blue YouTube demonetizes Rebel News. Now, I get videos demonetized. I thought there was one day I logged in and all of my videos were yellow, and I posted, "Oh, YouTube demonetized me," and the next day, all of my videos were back to being green. And I was like, oh, okay, they didn't demonetize me. I don't know what happened. So I've had that happen, and it switched back the next day. I don't know why or what. I didn't appeal anything or anything like that. I was confused about why. And this is before I moved to Rumble. And so I think it's concerning. Before my bellwether was Amazing Polly. When I was like, if Amazing Polly is still on here and making videos, then they're not going to come after me. And then after they got rid of Amazing Polly, I was kind of like, well, if the Rebels continuing to post, they're not going to come after me. I've said before, it's a matter of time. It's a matter of time. It's a matter of time if we keep going down this road, and we are going down this road. There's I'm watching it and I wonder, am I doing enough? I don't know what else I could do. I don't know how else I could fight. Honestly, if you've got suggestions, I'm open to ideas. But it's a situation where it's so big and it's so entrenched. it's entrenched in churches, it's entrenched in school boards, it's entrenched in schools, it's entrenched in universities and government, it's entrenched in police forces. I've got examples of all of these. How do you fight that? You're almost fighting against the culture itself now. They're telling you, and it's not a majority of people, because the majority of people just want to be left alone. Fix the potholes and get out of my way. Let me open my business. Let me work for the guy. Let me work over Christmas and make my tips, right? Let me work. Let me do the things that are normal. But there's a small minority that are saying, this is what you have to deal with now, and that's it, and you don't have a say in it. The RCMP they breached the policy on collecting online information. Are you surprised? I'm not surprised. Jagmeet Singh weighs in on an MP's post on racism in Quebec, but he does not want an apology. Apparently, the MP was calling. Mr. Legault has been saying that we need to end the woke stuff and the cancel culture, because Quebec books are being canceled, and that's cultural, and they like to defend their culture much more than it seems people in Ontario want to defend their culture. But they're pushing back, saying there was an MP who called that stance wrong, and in a volatile way, I think. And Singh's not demanding any kind of repercussions for that. I'm not surprised, right? It's the rules aren't universal. If you are on the left, they don't apply to you, pretty simply. And here's the military final story for today. The military stuff. The current circumstances have shaken us, said the acting chief of the defense staff. Military needs abuse of power training and misconduct reckoning. Abuse of power training for the military? That's a joke. It's a joke. Come on, abuse. You know that warship you've got there? That's very abusive of your power, eh? Okay. You're an army. Okay, explaining the joke is terribly, terribly gauche, but I think that it's very, very funny. A military needs abusive power. You couldn't write this. You couldn't write this ridiculousness. You have to laugh because it's so crazy. And they're not going to do anything about any of this stuff, right? I understand that abuse of power, it's not talking about the military, it's talking about the people in the military, and they're abusing their power within the ranks to exploit for a Me Too moment or sexual exploitation or whatever you want to call it. But they're not and never were going to do anything. They gave the guy a raise. And now the people who gave the guy a raise are saying, yeah, well, we should have abusive power training. Okay, it's going to work. It's going to work. It's going to solve that problem exactly the same way as how many other ineffective solutions have I highlighted through this show today? So many that I've forgotten them. So many. So they don't want to solve problems. All they want to do is kick the can down the road and not be held accountable for their bad governance, their lies, and their poor leadership skills. And that's where we are in Canada, and it's a damn shame, because it used to be a country that prided itself on good governance. And now we're in a mess at every level. Okay, thanks for watching. That's enough for me. Check out CanadaPoly.com. Check out CanadaReport.co. Check out SpeakingMoistly.co. Sorry for the sound levels. I tried to tell him. Have a wonderful, wonderful